There's a massive underwater sinkhole off the coast of Belize that extends 125 meters into the Earth's crust. It's called the Great Blue Hole. Scuba divers and snorkelers have been cruising the surface waters for decades.
Something terrifying is happening off the coast of China, and now beaches are being shut down one by one.
It drew hundreds of boats and thousands of visitors every day, until authorities were forced to close it temporarily in June, citing beach erosion and unsustainable pollution.
Marine researchers went in to study the ocean, but they found something that sent chills down their spines. Giant sinkholes opening deep underwater, wide enough to swallow submarines. This shocking discovery has left even experts speechless. But where did they come from? Could this be a warning sign of a much bigger disaster? Join us as we reveal the chilling truth behind the ocean's newest mystery and why the world should be paying close attention. You don't want to miss this. The first shutdowns. It all began quietly. Only a few beaches were closed along the southeastern coast of China. Places like Guangdong Province, known for their beautiful shorelines and family-friendly resorts, suddenly had red tape across entry points. Tourists were turned away. Locals were told it was due to routine safety checks or coastal maintenance, and it didn't raise many eyebrows, at least not right away. But then, more closures followed. Hainan Island, China's tropical getaway, shut down several of its beaches. Next, Fujian Province followed. In just a few days, multiple coastal regions had gone dark. That's when people started to notice something strange. There were no storms, no typhoons, no known pollution leaks. So why were entire beaches, harbors, and coastal access roads being shut down? Fishermen began to whisper about strange activity in the water. Some reported that their boats were harder to steer. Others noticed changes in the tides, unusual swirls and drops that made no sense even during calm weather. But the real panic began when a set of satellite images leaked online, and you'd want to pay close attention from here so you don't miss any detail. Shared first through a science forum and then picked up by curious netizens on Chinese social media, the images showed something deeply unsettling. Large, circular depressions forming on the seabed just off the coast of Fujian. They weren't natural looking. They looked like sinkholes, huge and perfectly round.
Chinese spelunkers were astonished after discovering a massive 630-foot sinkhole.
While some dismissed the images as fake or misinterpreted, researchers at a local university confirmed that similar anomalies had been detected by their equipment weeks earlier. Sonar mapping from a marine biology team had picked up sudden drops in elevation under the sea, steep, wide holes in the ocean floor where the seabed seemed to have collapsed. And these weren't static holes, they were growing. As panic quietly spread among the scientific community, China's oceanic authorities launched a full investigation. Underwater research teams were sent out. Sonar-equipped vessels began scanning the ocean floor in high-risk zones. Drones were deployed in key locations. But none of this was made public. The beaches simply remained closed, with vague signs and no news coverage. Meanwhile, locals began sharing videos and posts, some quickly taken down, about strange scenes offshore. Government boats speeding toward restricted areas, heavy equipment being lowered into the sea, divers in full gear boarding research vessels. There was clearly something they weren't telling the public, and the question on everyone's mind was growing louder by the day. What's happening beneath the waves? The silence from officials only deepened the mystery. If this was just a precautionary closure, why so much secrecy and urgency? The discovery. When the first research vessels left harbor, no one knew exactly what they would find. As the first wave of research vessels cut through the calm waters off China's southeastern coast, the mission ahead was covered in silence and urgency. Only a handful of officials knew the full picture. The public had been fed vague announcements, beach closures for safety checks, marine activity assessments, and temporary restrictions. But for the scientists aboard, The reality was far more serious. Something strange was happening beneath the surface, and it was spreading. So, equipped with sonar scanners, pressure sensors, remotely operated vehicles, and deep-sea drones, these teams were sent to explore the coordinates where the satellite images had shown alarming signs. Dark circular shadows, hinting at giant voids forming on the ocean floor. What they found when they arrived was far beyond what any of them had anticipated. The moment the sonar equipment was activated, the mood shifted. The monitors displayed enormous depressions, giant chasms gouged into the seabed, many of them hundreds of feet wide. The shapes were disturbingly symmetrical, nearly perfect circles. They didn't resemble any known geological formation in the area. One scientist described the scans as a nightmare carved into the earth. Another simply stared at the screen, whispering, "These aren't normal." Unlike typical seafloor features that form gradually over thousands of years, these cavities looked fresh, jagged around the edges, unstable, and deep. Some of them were so newly formed that they hadn't even begun to accumulate marine sediment at the bottom, suggesting they had opened up recently, possibly just days before the research ships arrived. Within hours, teams deployed deep-sea drones and ROVs to get a closer look. As the machines descended into one of the largest holes near Xiamen, the ocean darkened quickly. The lights from the drones could barely penetrate the depth, but what little they could see was chilling. The walls of the sinkhole were sheer, dropping straight down without slope. Chunks of rock and sand crumbled as the drones maneuvered inside. Then, without warning, something unexpected happened. A massive plume of bubbles erupted from the center of the cavity. At first, the team thought it was just compressed air escaping, but the onboard sensors quickly identified the gas: methane, mixed with traces of hydrogen sulfide. Both gases are dangerous in high concentrations.
That water turned into hydrogen energy, and California, really important for you to come visit Los Angeles especially.
Yeah, especially Los Angeles and especially Long Beach, because that's here that the first hydrogen trucks have been, designed and built up.
And are usually trapped beneath stable seabeds. Their sudden release hinted at massive underground pressure and geological instability. In other words, the ocean floor wasn't just collapsing, it was active. The footage from multiple drones revealed similar patterns across several locations: active gas vents, sudden shifts in pressure, and sections of the seabed breaking off and falling into the voids. These weren't fossilized relics from ancient collapses. They were alive, constantly moving, changing, expanding. One sinkhole was caught on video, actually widening in real time. The moment was quiet, surreal. The sandy walls began to shake slightly. Then, without warning, a large chunk of the rim gave way, sliding down into the black center. A shockwave of silt and bubbles shot upward. Instruments on board the research vessel registered a pressure fluctuation strong enough to disrupt their signal briefly. It was clear, these holes were not dormant. They were evolving. Some geologists on the mission began to suspect that these sinkholes weren't isolated events, but part of a larger network. If the theory was correct, it meant the seabed itself could be fracturing along hidden fault lines or dissolving due to chemical reactions below the surface. And worse, if one collapsed violently, it could trigger others nearby, causing a chain reaction. But guess what? Beyond the geological chaos, there were biological red flags too. The waters around several sinkholes were unusually quiet. Fishes had vanished, coral appeared bleached or dislodged. Even sea cucumbers and starfish, usually abundant in these zones, were nowhere to be found. In one location near the South China Sea, divers sent to collect water samples noticed something even stranger: dead fish floating near the surface, even though there were no visible toxins or oil slicks. When tested, the water revealed low oxygen levels and traces of methane, consistent with gas release from the seafloor. The ecological impact was clearly underway, and if gas releases continued, the damage to marine life would spread fast and far. The deeper the scientists explored, the weirder things got. Near one particularly large sinkhole, a drone's compass began spinning wildly, refusing to lock on to any direction. It wasn't a one-off glitch. Two other submersibles experienced the same problem. Magnetic interference in the area made it nearly impossible to orient equipment properly. In another dive, pressure sensors failed as the vehicle approached the edge of a cavity. The readings jumped erratically, then flatlined before suddenly returning to normal once the drone pulled back. Some researchers began to speculate about what was causing these disturbances. Could it be underwater gas pockets, subsurface shifts in metal deposits, or something even more exotic, like volcanic activity deeper below? Whatever the cause, one thing was clear. These weren't normal oceanic conditions. Back on shore, data from the first expeditions was rushed to government officials. What was originally framed as a minor geological investigation had now turned into a full-scale emergency study. The response was swift but silent. More vessels were sent out. New high-resolution mapping missions were approved. But the public still hadn't been told the truth. Meanwhile, local authorities continued to issue beach closures, sometimes with only hours' notice. Areas once teeming with tourists were now ghost towns patrolled by Coast Guard boats. The silence was growing louder. People began to wonder, why no news reports? And what exactly had the scientists found? The answer, of course, was sinkholes. Dozens of them. Deep, growing, and dangerous. And they weren't going away. As more data came in, something else became apparent. The sinkholes were forming along a strange pattern, not randomly scattered, but in clusters, almost like veins along the ocean floor. This raised serious concerns among geologists. Could the seafloor be undergoing a slow collapse across a broader region? If so, the consequences could be catastrophic. A massive undersea landslide, a sudden release of trapped gas, even the potential for tsunami formation if a large enough section of the seabed gave way all at once. Scientists raced to model potential scenarios, but with so little data and such fast developments, the future remained uncertain. One thing, however, was now undeniable. China's coast was sitting on something unstable, something hidden, and something overall terrifying. Before we continue revealing what's happening off China's coastline, we know you may be wondering, what exactly is happening beneath the waves? And how do they come about? Because while sinkhole is a word that usually brings to mind collapsing roads or swallowed-up buildings on land, ocean sinkholes are a very different and much more mysterious beast. What do you think? Let's explore this for a moment. What are these sinkholes? Ocean sinkholes, sometimes called blue holes, are large underwater depressions in the seabed. They can form naturally over thousands or even millions of years, often in areas with limestone or salt beds that slowly dissolve under pressure and chemical reactions. Many of them are ancient, stable, and quiet. But the ones appearing off China's coast? They're something else entirely. Marine sinkholes don't typically just open up overnight. They develop slowly, shaped by geological time. But the ones discovered near China's southeastern coast have shocked experts.
Storm Typhoon Meranti has slammed into China's southeastern coastal city of Xiamen.
They're forming fast, forming in clusters, and most disturbingly, they appear to be active. In geological terms, active means constantly changing, still forming, shifting, or expanding. Many of these newly discovered ocean sinkholes aren't just remnants of past collapses. They are still alive. Some are releasing gas. Others are crumbling around the edges. A few have even been seen growing in real time. And that, they'll say, is not normal behavior. Scientists are still trying to pinpoint the exact cause, but several theories are being explored, and all of them are concerning. Underneath the ocean floor in many parts of the world, frozen methane gas, known as gas hydrates, is trapped in solid form. These deposits are stable when under cold temperatures and high pressure. But if the water warms up, or if pressure is disturbed, these hydrates can suddenly melt. When they do, massive amounts of methane are released, and the ground above can collapse, forming a sinkhole.
Sinkhole on the east side of the highway, sparking even more delays and detours now that both sides of the interstate are closed down in the same section.
This is one possible explanation for the bubbling holes off China's coast, and if true, it means climate change may be playing a direct role. Another possibility: shifting tectonic plates. China sits near the Pacific Ring of Fire, a region known for earthquakes, underwater volcanoes, and crustal movement. If fault lines are stretching or slipping beneath the sea, it could weaken the seabed and trigger sudden collapses. This theory also explains the strange magnetic disruptions and pressure spikes detected by researchers. It would mean the seafloor isn't just soft, it's unstable. There's also the chance that underground water is eroding the rock layers beneath the seabed, just like how sinkholes form on land. If salt or limestone layers are dissolving due to currents or temperature changes, the ground above them could suddenly give way. But for this many sinkholes to form so quickly, something more unusual might be going on. Could it get worse? Yes, and that's the biggest fear. The biggest danger isn't just a hole in the seabed, it's what that hole can lead to. Large ocean sinkholes can disrupt ecosystems, destroy coral reefs, and kill marine life. But in some cases, they can trigger even bigger disasters. For example, tsunamis. If a massive chunk of the seabed collapses suddenly, it can displace enough water to cause a wave, especially if it happens near shore. Also, methane is highly flammable. If released in huge amounts and ignited by underwater heat or friction, it could cause underwater explosions. Plus, if these holes are part of a connected fault or weak crust, they could lead to landslides under the ocean, shifting massive amounts of earth and water. And that's why China's silence is so alarming. Because if officials believe any of these scenarios are even remotely possible, they might be preparing for something big. Now, are sinkholes predictable? Sadly, not really. This is because they form under the ocean, where visibility is low and pressure is high. It's incredibly hard to monitor early warning signs. Most underwater sinkholes are discovered after they've formed, and if one starts to open rapidly, there's little anyone can do to stop it. Sonar scanning and pressure monitoring can help, but it's expensive, complex, and often too late. In this case, China's sudden deployment of sonar-equipped vessels and the rush of scientific activity suggest they're trying to map the situation quickly, possibly to anticipate where the next hole might appear. But nature doesn't always follow predictions, so we don't fully know exactly what we're dealing with. And that's the terrifying part. It could be a rare but natural geological chain reaction, something triggered by tectonic motion or gas release. It could be connected to environmental changes happening globally. Or it could be something entirely new, an underwater phenomenon we've never encountered at this scale before, and that's what's keeping experts up at night. The deep ocean remains Earth's least explored frontier. We know more about the surface of the moon than the bottom of our own seas. And while the word sinkhole might sound simple, it's just the beginning of what could be a much bigger puzzle. And China isn't the only country that should be watching. Geological features don't stop at borders. Ocean currents, shifting tectonics, and interconnected seabeds mean this could affect Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, or even countries further away. The ocean doesn't care about maps. But what caused these holes to start forming now? Is it natural or triggered by human activity, offshore drilling? The theories and the secrets China might be hiding. Experts suggest that the seafloor off China's southeastern coast is made of porous limestone, a rock highly vulnerable to erosion by acidic water. Over thousands of years, seawater may have dissolved the rock, forming vast underground caves. Eventually, these caves collapse under their own weight, forming sinkholes. Add in minor seismic activity, small underwater tremors invisible to satellites, and you have a recipe for sudden collapse. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's where things get weird. Some geologists believe the sinkholes are linked to deep-sea drilling, mining, or even underwater blasting. Over the past decade, China has quietly ramped up offshore oil and gas exploration, especially in the South China Sea. These operations often involve powerful machinery that disturbs the ocean floor. If you drill too deep or too often in fragile rock formations, you risk creating pressure vacuums, leading to collapse. And here's the catch. Most of these activities are not publicly reported. Satellite imagery has captured strange vessels and rigs operating in remote zones for weeks at a time, then disappearing. No official statements, no data released. Is it possible China has triggered some of these sinkholes accidentally, and now they're covering it up? Another theory gaining attention is that these are the side effects of classified military operations. China has been aggressively developing underwater drones, submarine bases, and even deep-sea weapon systems. Some believe that nuclear-powered equipment or acoustic testing could be destabilizing the ocean floor. In 2024, a leaked satellite photo showed a massive circular disturbance near one of the sinkhole sites. Too large to be a natural current, too symmetrical to be random. That image was swiftly scrubbed from most Chinese social media platforms. People are wondering if this is a coincidence or a cleanup. But here's where things take a wild turn. A few scientists have speculated that these holes might not be sinkholes at all, but entrances to something beneath the Earth's crust. Some sonar scans reveal voids that stretch deeper than expected, far beyond typical collapse points. Could these be ancient volcanic tubes? While mainstream geologists dismiss this as science fiction, the fact remains: no one can fully explain the shape, pattern, or depth of some of these holes, and the secrecy surrounding them only fuels speculation. When international researchers requested permission to study the largest sinkhole site, Chinese officials denied access, citing national security concerns. Beijing has remained mostly silent about the incidents. No major news coverage, no scientific papers released, and no official investigations announced. And as expected, that silence speaks volumes. And it raises serious questions. If it's just a geological phenomenon, what's the risk in telling the world? Some believe China is scrambling to study the phenomenon themselves before the rest of the world gets involved. Others believe they already know what's going on and are doing everything they can to keep it buried. But guess what? There's shocking footage captured by an underwater drone that was sent into one of these sinkholes, and the discovery it made is simply terrifying. What it revealed left experts speechless and may explain why the Chinese government doesn't want anyone looking too closely. So, what started as a routine exploration mission quickly turned into one of the most chilling underwater mysteries in modern history. According to insiders from China's Oceanic Research Institute, the sinkholes weren't just wide, they were deep. Much deeper than early sonar scans had shown. One drone, nicknamed Crab Walker, descended over 300 meters into one of the larger sinkholes. Its lights barely penetrated the darkness. What it recorded looked less like a hole and more like a vertical tunnel, with smooth, unnatural-looking walls in some sections. Scientists reviewing the feed described it as too symmetrical to be natural. Then, things got worse. Halfway into the mission, Crabwalker's instruments began to glitch. Compass spinning, sonar pinging wildly, temperatures fluctuating wildly, one moment icy cold, the next inexplicably warm. Then, a loud metallic screeching sound was picked up on the drone's audio channel. Something echoing through the hole. Not water, not machinery, something else. The audio file, according to one leaked report, was so disturbing that officials classified it immediately. Only a few seconds of distorted screeching made it online, before being removed from public servers. Before communication was cut off completely, the drone's last video showed something even more terrifying. Movement. The footage was grainy, the visibility low, but something passed in front of the drone's camera. It was large, moved slowly, and it didn't match any known marine species. Some experts believe it was simply a large deep-sea creature. Others suggest it could have been debris falling. But here's the intriguing part. After that mission, Crabwalker never resurfaced. China reported it lost contact due to a technical error. but many believe it was deliberately destroyed, or worse, taken. Inside China's marine research circles, there's now growing tension. Anonymous whistleblowers claim researchers are being silenced. Lab computers were seized. Social media posts from marine scientists were deleted without explanation. And now, with the disappearance of Crab Walker and the terrifying footage it left behind, some experts are now wondering if these aren't just sinkholes at all. Whatever the truth is, someone is working very hard to keep it from the public, and other nations like Japan, the US, Australia are demanding answers. Japan, the United States, and several international marine organizations have all requested access to the sinkhole sites for independent investigation, but China refuses. Why? If it's simply a natural occurrence, why the secrecy? These sinkholes, whether caused by seismic shifts, ancient caverns, or something else entirely, remind us of just how little we understand the deep and the need to study it further. That brings us to the end of this video. What do you think is the cause of these sinkholes? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.